So another thing too is while you're doing this, like when you start doing this shadow work and start diving deep, it's really important to have comfort. It's really important to have a list of all the good qualities that you can think of, have nurturing relationships. Because if you dig into this and you don't have any kind of support, it could drag you down potentially, and it could be pretty intense. It could be too difficult to start. So start very small, but also overpower it with nurturing, self care, self love. And I'm going to share some tools that you can do, and you can put these things in place while you're doing shadow work. I'm a transformational cheerleader, so this is part of what I do as my as part of my business. And it's something I have experience in, so I can share these tools with you. And so you have all these tools here for free on my YouTube channel, and you'll have access to information. You can always ask questions in the comments and everything. And if you want to get a session with me, you can, but that's not my point of creating this. Kind of my point is to share my own process with my unconsciousness. And as I continue to explore that, like what I find in that, and kind of a roadmap for y'all, because I've done some massive like deconstructing of things. Again, it's not like I'm not coming from this place like, oh, I have achieved all the things. No, I don't think that's possible in life. I don't think it's possible to just achieve all the things. I don't believe that. I think that's part of the human experience, is to continue to explore and excavate. But I will share, because I started in my 20s, so it's been decades of me doing this self work and also supporting, I started to support others in this a few years back. So I have experience that I'm happy to share, and also kind of give anyone support who just is like feeling like shit while you're self excavating, or feeling like shit when you're just like facing your shadow, because it's gonna be ugly. It's gonna be ugly. And I think one of the biggest things, it's kind of like a trap, is that we're so shamed to always look good or always be the good guy. Sometimes we're just, sometimes it looks like shit, and sometimes we're not the good guy. You know what I mean? And that's okay. It doesn't mean you can't come back around to being back to being in integrity and being the good guy and all this other stuff. But I don't think it's so black and white in humanity. Sometimes good and bad is can be like these dogmas at times, because it can be based on religious extremism, or misogyny, or misogynoir, or sexism, or white supremacy. So when you base good and bad off of those things, you can lose yourself, and you can actually just get um, swept under the rug of these really intensive societal ingrained, systemic ingrained policies. It's So we have to be careful. And part of the shadow work for me personally is also decolonizing and deconstructing from these paradigms. So when we base the who is good and who is bad on all of these things, then we have to just kind of be a little bit more careful too. But yeah, there are certain things that are just, that are black and white. And then there's other things, but most of the things that we base morality on have been ingrained in shame. So I'll be talking about making the distinction between morality and domination, because unfortunately those two have been conflated so heavily, and nobody needs that shit. um but yeah, we're gonna get into that. But I think one of the most important parts is, when you start to see the ugly side of yourself, is to love it, right? So that's part of shadow work, and that's how I like the operation of shadow work, is to embrace the shadow, to love the shadow, but also to not worship the shadow. And unfortunately, I've seen in shadow work, there are people who kind of suck it in or call it shadow work when it's not, and they kind of they use it as an excuse for harm. There's a lot of people who call BDSM shadow work. It is not. As a former pro and lifestyle dom of 13 years, I speak on Free from BDSM, and pretty much a lot of the stuff I do is shadow work, even without the title. But I'm specifically starting to use the title shadow work because I want to impact the conversation of shadow work from a perspective that I've created. And of course, I have influences of a lot of things, but I've unfortunately seen BDSM be talked about shadow work. And so I'm going to start entering the conversation of shadow work now, to really kind of align it, and kind of share just how I work with shadow work. But Free from BDSM is my anti BDSM conversation. It's not like any other anti BDSM conversation that I have seen. And I have not seen anyone thus far in the anti BDSM conversation who was a pro and lifestyle Dom and who is now and has not been in the BDSM community, in the BDSM realm for over a decade. So I will be talking about how that is not shadow work and that's actually shadow worship. And there's a massive difference. And it's only going to create more shadow. It's not going to help you. It's not going to, it doesn't help you work through stuff. It's just reenactment and re traumatization. But we'll get into that. So, with this preface, I just kind of wanted to share a little bit about what I'm going to be doing. Again, like I said, it's kind of this is the aspect right here in the shadow work where I'm going to be talking about my own personal unconsciousness. Again, within my privacy, within my safety, because I deserve safety. You deserve safety when talking about shadow work. You don't have to give details to everybody. But if there is something in particular you are struggling with, you can feel free to, again, ask in the comments if that feels safe to you. If it doesn't, then trust that. Then just trust that. Um, but the biggest issue I think for myself, like just speaking for myself, if I forget to look at my own unconsciousness, I miss out, right? So, one of the things after I've been doing this work for years, what happens is I start to recall like there is a really great reward on the other side of facing my unconsciousness. And when I first started the work, it just felt like self punishment, quite frankly. I just felt like, this is terrible. I hate this. Why am I doing this? But because I wasn't really understanding that it wasn't about like self flagellation, it wasn't about self punishment, I just felt really guilty and ashamed of my unconsciousness and things I had done, in because of this unconsciousness, or like, trying to deconstruct brainwashing and all this other stuff. And like, socially and systemically, we are brainwashed. We are deeply brainwashed into very specific ways of thinking and supporting very specific ways of thinking and being and all these other things. So what I didn't understand was that it can be gentle. Like shadow work can be a gentle process, and that's how I work it. I work it as a gentle process. Not everybody does it that way, but I personally work shadow work as a gentle process. It's intensive, it's confronting, but I also am very clear to make it a gentle process because in this aspect. Now, when it comes to other things, if I'm calling someone out, that's different. For me, I'm like, I'm not working in the shadow work in the way I work it. I'm just like, this is bullshit, this is bullshit, this is bullshit. More like a kind of like whistleblower type of stuff. And that's kind of a bit different because I'm calling shit out and I'm like, I'm not playing with this, right? Like, I am not going to get into the grooming of coddling unconsciousness like that, right? So, but if I'm working into shadow work, I want it to be gentle. But when I'm being like a whistleblower and an activist and an advocate, I'm just like, no, I'm not going to get into the grooming of being kind to abusers. So that's just something completely different. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Mm-mm. Um, but if someone's going to step into the conversation of shadow work with me, it's just a different experience. Because for me personally, I think shadow work can be gentle, and that's how I do it. But it does take a certain level of self responsibility, and not everyone's at that place, and that's fine. But that's what this conversation is for. The shadow work conversation is for people who are there at that level of self-responsibility, might be a little bit confused as to what the hell to do next, might be dealing with some shame, and we can work through that. Like, I'll be making videos on stuff like how to work through the shame when you are doing shadow work, because listen, I did not have that. I didn't have that kind of support in working through shadow work. I did have good friendships that did help me in some of the shadow work, but one of the biggest things is shadow work oftentimes with people like can show up as a kind of brutality, and I just don't feel like it needs to be. Um, and so I've found a way to work through it in a little bit more gentle stuff. So if you're dealing with like, oh, you just found something that's heavy, like, whatever you're coming out of, whatever unconsciousness you're coming out of, and you're like, oh shit, that type of thing, regardless of the topic, I got you, because I have pulled myself out of that repeatedly, and I'm continuing to do so. Like that's just that's just the shadow work, right? Like, but I'm continuing to do so, and I'm in that space right now of like going a little bit deeper of like, what do I need to really take time to excavate and deconstruct? Um, Unfortunately, my shadow work was heavily put on pause because, like I said, I survived domestic violence, and it's very difficult. Like, he used all of my self reflection, all of the work that I tried to do on myself, he abused me with it, and he just saw a weak point where he could gaslight and groom me. So finally, I'm safe, so I can start doing the shadow work again. Um, and that took time. That took time to get to this place, and it took safety, and it took also just my own awareness of like, oh, something's missing here. Something's missing here. And I'm like, damn it. Like self-awareness just, it can be a pain in the ass. Like, it's just like, fuck, nobody wants to really, I can't say nobody, some people do, but I don't enjoy looking at the ugly side of myself. I'm like, ew, I don't want to deal with that. Yuck. But also like, there's also kind of an excitement because I know at the other side of this intensive work, I'm going to feel free. I'm going to feel more in tune with myself because I'm going to be in a deeper level of integrity with myself. And I'm also going to be able to shift my listening of others, which also increases my intimacy. And increased intimacy is delicious. It's very nourishing. It's increased connectivity with the people I love, with community. So it really is a gift. It really is. Um, I really do relish in the outcome of moving through my unconsciousness. The process itself, I'm not a fan of. Like, this is so uncomfortable. Like, but I know that on the other side of that, I'm going to feel a deeper sense of freedom, a deeper sense of relaxation, because all of this, if I'm not facing my unconsciousness, it develops into tension in my body. And quite frankly, um, I'm not a doctor, I'm not, a scientist or anything like that. But from the very tiny, teeny, teeny little bits that I've read, it can affect your own health too, right? Like if you're holding on to this tension and this unconsciousness, your body experiences it. Like I do somatic therapeutic practices in releasing these things from the body, but part of that also is going to be like starting to make the unconscious conscious. And I want to be very careful with that statement because I'm not saying that there will never be unconsciousness. Like, I just don't think we've reached a part of our brain development, evolutionary wise, that we don't have some kind of unconsciousness. We don't even use our full brain yet. We haven't evolved to that point. But I do but I do find all of this massively important is the self-reflection, and it does shift how we impact others. And I think that's one of the biggest things, right? So like in order to shift how society works, it's really important to shift how we impact society. And this is a constant growth. It's a constant growth process. I don't think it ends. Um, but there's an adventure in that too. Like if you start to get to the point of you have a relationship with shadow work where you can understand that it is an adventure, it is a self adventure, you're going to discover more about yourself. And how exciting is that? That's so fucking exciting. Yes, you're going to see some gritty shit that you didn't like, that you did not think that's how you were. And I'm going to tell you, if you keep fighting when people are just like, um, you have a bias, you have a prejudice, you're being racist, you're being sexist, you're being a homophobe, you're being a transphobe. And this is a constant reflection. And you're like, that's not who I am. Honey, let me tell you something. It might be. Now, of course, you have to make sure it's around, um, you're around safe people. But it's so tricky, right? Because you might consider your identity, might consider someone attacking it. It's like it might perceive someone as attacking it by telling it this is not exactly true. So just make sure you're not around abusers because that's really important. But you also have to it's just so tricky. You got to be very delicate with this because and once you create an identity for yourself, it does not want to fucking die, right? Flat out. But it's going to have to transform. It's going to have to go through a bit of a growth or death process, if you will. And in order to expand, to be expansive. And that's confronting and it's intensive and it can be grueling and it can be really fucking hard when you're like, oh shit, maybe I am some of these things. You know what I mean? Like maybe some of these things are true. Maybe I do have a prejudice. Maybe I do have a bias. Maybe I am being uh imposed upon by societal norms. And that could be really confronting. I'm going to tell you, I have my own biases, my own prejudices that I had to face. So I'm not talking to you as someone. I'm Black and Indigenous. Um, I'm not talking to you as someone who it may not be the same as you, but I'm not talking to someone who hasn't gone through like really intensive deconstruction because I fucking have. I mean, in order to go from being a dominatrix to being anti BDSM, that's intense. That was an intense fucking process, and it's why I created the conversation of free from BDSM. Um, but I'm gonna tell you, I'm be like straight up with you. When I first started the conversation of free from BDSM, it was not what it is right now. Okay, I was like, I was just calling people like all sorts of names, all sorts of shit. And it was really what I started to realize it was like a reflection of myself. Now, what I'm doing now, like with the eradicating white supremacy and using the word fuck every time I want, has been actually freeing for me because it has been it's been deconstructing shit for me because I spent years trying to talk about that stuff delicately, but I ended up um not like just being in unconsciousness with it and really getting used and really actually supporting stuff that goes against my true core beliefs. And yeah, I couldn't deconstruct. I could not deconstruct or decolonize until I started to talk the way I am talking about it and being like, fuck this shit, this is stupid, blah, 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 and all that. For me, that is my freedom. That is my personal freedom. And that's exactly raw and real and healthy for me at this time. So that I'm not negating in any shape or form. But when it came to free from BDS, because I'm very clear, and even in that conversation, I'm like, fuck this, fuck that. I'm still an invitation to come out of it. So that's the difference from how I used to do things, where I wouldn't allow myself to speak. I would be tone policed as a Black and Indigenous woman, like, oh, you can't be angry, you can't say these things, you shouldn't say fuck that. No, I'm going to, right? Because that became a shadow. That became me actually feeding my shadow by not talking the way I'm talking right now. So for me, I feel free and I feel healthy and I love it. And I'm just going to keep doing that because that's what's authentic. That's what's authentic for me. But when it came to the free from BDSM, that's not how it started. I just came after everybody. I'm like, you're all abusers, you're all this, you're all that, blah blah blah, and that's where I was. And then I took a break and I started to self reflect. I'm like, maybe that doesn't work. Um, but the problem is my ex also shut down that conversation, so I couldn't continue to grow. One of the biggest ways that I've grown in all of this is to be able to share things publicly and get the feedback and then resist the feedback and, and then see what is true for me. So anyway, um, but it's restarted. I've restarted the conversation over and over again. The last time I was like getting pretty thorough in it. There was some unconsciousness, so there was things to look at, but again, got shut down, so I have to start everything from scratch because of an abuser. So careful who you share, who you let in intimately when you're doing these processes. But at this point, I've come to a place with Free from BDSM where I'm like, oh, okay. I was kind of like projecting my own shame onto all DOMs. And I'm like, that doesn't fucking work, right? Like, that's just that, I just work through more of my own shame and start to like recalibrate how I have this conversation. So it's this just, and I have so much more to share on my own unconsciousness. Um, but again, I'm in this position where I'm like, refining, how do I talk about this, how do I share my unconsciousness with you in a way that still leaves me whole and make sure I'm doing it in a healthy, grounded way, right? So that's kind of where I'm at right now, and I'm working on some things I'm not going to share yet because it's not finished yet, but I'm pretty fucking excited on the stuff. One thing I will share, um so one of the conversations that I'm going to be having on this is being responsible in hatred, right? Like, it's okay to hate if you're being responsible about it. But if you use it to build a prejudice, you're being irresponsible and you're actually feeding a shadow. You're not loving your shadow, right? Like, so if you're being self responsible with your hatred, you are starting to embrace and love your shadow. And that's going to give you more insight, hopefully increase your empathy, your ability to listen, and all of that will increase your intimacy. And it is juicy. There's nothing more delicious than increased intimacy, um, and not getting stuck in shadow worship, right? So that's a big one for me, and I always have to like tote that line and be like, oh, okay, let me just clarify, like, let me just clarify where I'm unconscious and work from there. But yes, so this is a preface for what I'm going to be sharing here, and I want you all to be super very careful. Please be very careful. Please be very careful who you choose as your shadow work teacher as well, because there are a lot of charlatans out there. There are a lot of predators out there who are using the term shadow work. There are a lot of cult leaders who will use this term. And as a survivor of child trafficking by a cult, I will tell you that is extremely dangerous. Okay. So people are trying to, and some people will think like, oh, that's not true, cults aren't really a thing. And I really hope that if you're listening to this video you have the education on it, but I also understand that if you lived in a world where you just weren't touched by it, or you don't come from extreme abuse, or you don't come from an abusive background, or that you might not know this exists, but it does. So just please be careful out there. And I would love to protect you from all things bad. I know I can't. I know that's not real. But if I can share, if I can protect you from some of the shit that I survived by sharing about it, and by maybe hopefully giving you a roadmap for your own process. And of course, I'm not saying this is how you have to do things, but if anything I share kind of resonates and you go off and you create your own beautiful genius magic on how to process your shadow, awesome. I'm just here to just kind of ping your own personal creativity. And or if something, if everything I share resonates, cool, feel free to use it word for word as a roadmap for your personal self, your personal process as well. But I've been through this process so many fucking times, and I know how grueling it can be. And if you don't know that you deserve gentleness and love while you're going through it, it could fuck you up. It fucked me up. I'm gonna tell you that, at least. It um it fucked me up. And you may not process it the same way. You might be just absolutely handy dandy fine. But this is intensive work. It is grueling. It is not fun. It at There are many parts that are not fun. Is when you come from the other side of it, it will be fun. I do try and find some fun ways to work through it, but it is pretty difficult um, when you're looking at the own unconscious parts of your psyche to be gentle with yourself, or to think about engaging in fun in the world. It could really open up any wounds about your self worth, So this is a road to tread delicately, and I want to help you tread delicately through shadow work. But it is going to take an increasing level of self responsibility, which again, you have to be careful with abusers because they are more than happy to have you take responsibility for absolutely fucking everything. We will fine tune that so that your identity doesn't warp that also in a way to protect its shadow. Shadow work is so tricky. It's so tricky. But I will share the ways that I navigate it, and I really hope it helps you because shadow work is a fucking beautiful thing. It really is awesome. It's nourishing. It is intense freedom in my personal experience, and it will create a relationship with your integrity, and not integrity as like a moral thing, or I don't even say moral thing because moral's not a bad thing. It's just been the term moral has been warped a lot and has been misused. There is the shadow side of the term moral, okay, and that's the one that most people use. They use it as some kind of supremacy, and that's not what I'm talking about. I mean your own personal morals that make you feel good about yourself and your integrity, having that connection, but your integrity does not have to be connected, or how do I word this? Integrity itself is not about morals. It's about what actions or what you're doing that you are keeping in alignment with yourself, right? And it doesn't have to be a moralistic thing. It's just, are you saying are you doing what you say you're doing, being who you say you are, and where are you out of integrity, and not as a self-flagellating thing, but as a where can I tighten this ship? Where can I clean things up? What does that look like, right? And so that's kind of in the conversation of integrity that I'm talking about. Not like I'm a piece of shit because I didn't do this. No, because actually that's kind of a waste of time, and it actually keeps you away from integrity longer if you're self-flagellating. I didn't know that. So I'm telling you that so it can save you some fucking time, because I'm going to tell you something. Self-flagellation is going to come up. We're going to have shame. We're going to have guilt. We're going to have those stuff. But that's something to just work through, right? And it's really helpful to work through with some gentle self-love. But so it's just normal. It's not to shame the self-flagellation or put that deeper in the shadow. It's just understanding that self-flagellation becomes a waste of time and can also keep you from integrity. It can keep you from growth that will free you and then will take you out of self-flagellation. I know it's this Ouroboros going on, but anyway, like, but yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing it. I'm not excited to delve into my own consciousness. I'm not excited about that process, but I'm excited about the outcome. I am kind of in the space of like, oh, that's so fucking delicious. I am excited for the outcome. So I'm excited for the adventure of it. I'm not excited for the processing itself. Like, the self site is never fun. But yeah, I am excited to, again, not share the process. I'm really not excited about that. It is nerve wracking to think of, and like, oh, and to also be vulnerable here and share that and find that balance, right? So this is my own unconsciousness that I'm sharing with you, and my own raw process in that unconsciousness. And I'm also discovering as I share with yous. Um, and part of that is like finding that balance and keeping in my authentic voice and not shutting down my authentic voice of calling shit the fuck out, because that is me being responsible for myself and pulling out of people pleasing bullshit, pulling out of being shut down. And also, I'm going to be sharing all of my joy and fun and silliness too, because I was groomed and gaslighted to shut down that part. I was around a bunch of people who did not know how to love and did not know how to really access their own deep joy. So when I shared my deepest excitement and joy, they called me fake. And so they really shamed that, and they tried to put my joy into my shadow, right? And so and they were successful for a couple years because I was just surrounded by them and I was stuck in their circle. But now I'm free of that, and I'm accessing all of what I want to say, my joy, my excitement, my raw, unbridled fuck this shit. which I will continue to do because that is so fucking valid, and I'm validating my own fuck this shit. And what I'm doing in saying fuck this shit is I'm saying fuck all of this grooming bullshit where I have to fucking be nice to abusers. I will not do it. But at the same time, I'm also calling these people in their abusers in their abusive ways. I'm calling them to be like, hey, you don't have to stay here. You really, like, I deeply believe in redemption. I deeply believe that anyone can redeem themselves if they really want to. If they really want to put the work in, I believe anyone can redeem themselves. And that might be, and that's not an easy thing to say. I don't say that like flippantly. That's difficult. But I do believe that people can. I do believe even people from the darkest parts of their lives, I think they can redeem themselves. And I've seen it. I've seen people do it. Not everything I've personally seen people do, but I've seen from other people's stories and through other people's videos and then sharing like how they used to believe. I mean, I'm talking like full on fucking KKK members pulling it around and being like, "Oh shit," and pulling out of that and changing their lives and actually becoming activists for the black community and brown community and teaching other people who have been brainwashed by white supremacy how to get out. Like that's fucking huge shit, right? Like that's big. So that's what I mean. Like wherever you're coming from, you can turn this shit around. It's intensive shadow work. None of that shit was easy for anybody to turn around. I mean, there are people who murder who turn their life around. I know these are extreme things that I'm talking about, but life is pretty fucking extreme. And if you think you're not worthy of redemption, I completely disagree with you. I think you're wrong. And so, one of the biggest things I want to talk about is redemption. And I'm probably going to start talking about it more and start highlighting it more as well, because everything I talk about really all comes down to like everybody can shift. It doesn't matter how dark your shit is, like you can shift. There are certain topics that I personally can't talk to because of my traumatic past. So I wouldn't have a conversation. I wouldn't have a face to face conversation with certain people regarding this just because my own personal trauma would be just too re-traumatizing for me. Like I wouldn't have conversations with cult leaders, you know what I mean? Like it's just not what I could do. But there's plenty of people who can. But I wouldn't have an individualized conversation. But anyone, even if you are a cult leader and you're listening to this and you're trying to get out, like this is open to everybody. I just can't have that one on one, is what I'm saying. But and there's other topics that I can't even highlight right now because it's just even talking about is a bit too re-traumatizing. But the conversation I'm sharing is for everyone. If you don't think you can come back from something, I vehemently disagree. I think you can, but it is going to take shadow work and it is going to be intensive. It's not going to be fun, but it can be gentle. It's gonna be intensive. It's like the process itself is not gonna feel gentle because you're self excavating in a way that is really deconstructing any identities you were forced to build. I say forced to build because I don't believe people are born cult leaders. I don't believe people are born uh, racist. I don't believe people are born sexist or homophobic. We live in a systemic society that imprints this shit. And I do believe you can get the fuck away. I really do. But it's not going to be easy. It's going to be intensive. It's going to be hard work. And it's going to take consistent self sight. You can't let yourself slide. And it's the same thing for like anyone who it's just across the board. Like when you start to become aware of something, you can't just be like, I'm aware of it and that's it. No, because there's going to be layers and deeper layers and deeper layers. For instance, when I left BDSM, it's a consistent what's the next layer, what's the next layer, what's the next layer, because even over a decade out of BDSM, what can still be imprinted in me that I don't see, right? And that's kind of self excavation I'm still in incorporating, and I still am working on as well. That's one of the unconsciousness that I am still working on. But Yeah, you can do it. You can do it. It's not going to be fast. It's not going to be easy, but it can be a really powerful self-loving journey. I mean, that's to me what shadow work is self-love. To me, shadow work is self-love. Um, and we're talking about the deepest, darkest, ugliest parts of yourself that you just don't want to see. I do recommend getting a therapist if you can. Finding a good therapist is, I think, really foundational if possible. And yeah, just really taking care of yourself in this process because it's going to unearth some shit. I'm going to tell you something. You're going to lose people in your life. Prepare yourself to lose people in your life because when you become uncomfortable and you start to grow, you are going to see the people around you who do not match, and you're going to want to take some of them with you, and some of them might come along. So that's a possibility, or not. You might lose fucking everybody, and that could be very devastating too. Throughout my different levels and layers of growth, I have lost a lot of fucking people, and I have also gotten rid of a lot of people. I don't like the term "gotten rid of." I've had to let go of people being close to me in my life because it just did not fit, and they did not have the listening. There's a difference between people, and I'm not saying create an echo chamber because I have people in my life that we have different views of the world, right? Like that's great, but they're self-responsible. They're not abusive. They're not that way, and they understand my boundaries and stuff like that. So, but it's you're gonna have to do some house cleaning, not just within yourself, but you're gonna find it around you. You're also gonna have to be self-responsible to not like attack the people around you. Be like, I am this now, and you better be this too, or you're a piece of shit. Like I've been listen, I'm talking from experience. Okay, I'm talking from experience. Learn from my assholery in trying to become aware of my unconsciousness. Oftentimes, unconsciousness just becomes bigger at first. Um, so I pulled my head out of my ass. You can too. Let's collectively pull our heads out of our asses. It doesn't mean it's not going to go back up there because it will. That's just kind of, I think that's just the human experience. But if we keep working on ourselves, we can keep catching things. And sometimes we're just not going to catch things right away. But that's the process too. It's not about being perfect. And I really want to highlight shadow work isn't about being perfect. That's what the shadow is. The shadow is all the times you were told that you were supposed to be perfect in some sort of systemic way and you weren't. And it became part of your shadow. Okay. So this is not about you being a perfect person because who the fuck wants that? That's so sterile. Anyway, it's about you really being able to allow your authentic self to shine through. So I'm here to take this journey with you as well. So let's take this journey together. Let's be a little bit less of an asshole each day, if that can be any kind of a measurement. You know what I mean? Like I think every day that we choose to look at ourselves is progress. And it's also careful not to go into this cycle of like you doing this constant self work to the point where that becomes a shadow, where that becomes an avoidance. Part of part of this journey is also just enjoying your life. And no matter what you've done, no matter where you're coming from, you deserve to enjoy your life as you continue to take responsibility for your unconsciousness. And that was something that was hard won for me. It's still something I still work on reminding myself about because it's so easy to slip into self-loathing, just self-flagellation cycle when really that's just gonna slow shit down. Like really, and it doesn't mean you're not gonna feel it. It's okay to feel everything and recognize it and acknowledge it. We're not gonna put self-loathing and self-flagellation back into the shadowlands where we just don't face it or look at it, but also finding ways of being gentle with ourselves when it comes up and mourning. I think a big part for me in shadow work is mourning. One of the things that if you're working on your unconsciousness, if you've done some ugly shit in your past, or even if you haven't done ugly shit, but you've said ugly shit, which becomes an action, is the mourning because something was taken from you. Something was taken from you. If you are regurgitating unconsciousness, systemic unconsciousness, something was taken from you. They took something from you. They fucking hurt you. And that's a trauma. In my personal perception, that's a trauma. No one can regurgitate systemic anything without some form of fucking trauma. And here's the thing. Here's what's fucked, right? So they take your trauma and they use it against you, and what they do is they weaponize it. They take more safety away from you. They weaponize your trauma, and you become one of their enforcers. You start to enforce systemic, domination, basically. Like, if we're going to talk about all of it, right? It's systemic domination. And you're not included. They're going to lie to you and tell you you're included. And if you enact this systemic domination, you will be rewarded. You will not be rewarded. If you might be rewarded by like systemic priority, but you're still in the system. You understand? Like, being you're still being gauged by a broken system that just eats people fucking alive. It costs people's lives, and it keeps us all divided. It keeps us divided because divided we cannot stand united, right? Like, basic shit, right? So we got to do this work so we can unite and clean this shit up. We got to clean this fucking shit up. It can seem so big, but it has to start local. And the most local way it starts is with ourselves. That's where it begins, right? So when we start to deconstruct where systemically we have been traumatized, right? Because it's going to bring up some mourning. And what could cover the mourning is rage. And in order to not face the mourning, the rage can get projected outward. I'm gonna tell you, there's shit to mourn here. And for a lot of people, it's not gonna be easy because you're gonna have to face who the real problem is. And it's the systemic domination that we've been born into that we can deconstruct if we connect with each other, if we unite with each other. We can deconstruct this shit. But first, we have to face our shadow, because otherwise, we will not be able to see what the fuck we actually have to deconstruct. We will be kept in a war within ourselves and in a war with each other. That's how this shit works. That's how this shit works. So, I welcome you to be here. It's not going to be fucking easy. It's going to be confronting as shit. But there's freedom on the other side. There's community on the other side. Whatever you have been lied to about the so-called quote unquote community you're in right now, if it is perpetuating systemic domination, it is not a community. It is a gathering of enforcers, and it is, listen, I'm a survivor of brainwashing. I'm gonna tell you, this is brainwashing, and that's gonna be hard to face. It's gonna be hard to face how vulnerable you've been to it. And it's going to be hard to face the vulnerability of it. It is. It's going to be hard to face that you have been victimized systemically by something that wants to keep others oppressed, wants to keep you oppressed, does not stand for you. So, here we are. This is the preface. Moving forward, I'm going to be talking more about this, and I'm going to be talking about a whole sorts of stuff. But yeah, I'm going to be starting to talk about shadow work. I'm going to be, it's on my website, just kind of like in general, but I'm going to be working more on that as well. And there's some things I'm going to be putting together, but yeah, let's do it. Let's excavate this shit, because this is the shit that's keeping us from each other. And I don't mean like we all have to be buddy buddies and all this other stuff where we have to all agree, or it has to be like this mindless blob that we all agree with each other. No, that's kind of what's happening now in a very small percentile of people that are dominating our countries globally. It's pretty gross, right? That's the blob. They're the mind blob. They're the echo chamber. We're breaking free from that, okay? And we don't have to agree unanimously on everything to be able to have community with each other and um, start to learn what it looks like to respect each other. And we don't have to love each other. That's such an intimate thing. But we can be kind to each other, but we can't fucking do that if we're unconscious. And we don't have to be kind to each other's unconsciousness, but we can find a way to break through our own unconsciousness and move forward from there. And if you can start to see, like, when people are saying things that are confronting. I mean, if it's absolute bullshit and they're being abusive, then yeah, don't take that shit on. But you're gonna have to find the reality of the distinction between that and what is confronting that you just don't want to look at, and that's part of shadow work. But yeah, I stand by our business's motto, which is we rise together. But I will tell you, the work is not gonna be pretty, but you deserve it. You deserve to do this work that's uncomfortable because you got to do it for you, right? I'm not here to be like you have to do these things. You don't have to do shit. Ultimately, you don't have to do shit, but you deserve to do the work for yourself. And then it also you get to see the ripple effect, how it affects others, how it impacts the people you love, how it impacts people in your vicinity, people in your community. One of the most powerful things is the human sovereignty. Like your sovereignty as a human being. I wish I could show you what the ripple effects look like, but you will get to see that. And it's powerful. There's nothing more powerful than the being of a human being. Like you simply in being, it's your fucking energy affects people. Like we're all sensitive to each other. We can feel when something feels off. We can feel when something feels refreshing. You will start to see the impact, and you will start to see who starts to gravitate towards you when you start to grow. You're going to open yourself up to even more amazing people in your life because they're gonna fucking feel it. They're gonna fucking see it. And you know what that is? When they fucking feel it, when they fucking see it, when you really get into all of that, they're gonna get to see you. You will be seen. And that's fucking huge because you fucking deserve to be seen. You don't deserve to be hidden by behind this fucking sludge that is systemic domination. You don't fucking deserve that. None of us fucking deserve that. We're impacting each other like fucking crazy every fucking day on social media, in person. You go to a club, you go to a fucking concert. Every interaction impacts someone. You will actually get to be seen because the biggest thing about systemic domination is to destroy individualism, right? It's to destroy individualism. Now, other people say individualism is a problem. Now, it can be if it goes to the shadow side, right? But you are an individual and you matter as an individual. As one fucking person, you are really fucking important. You are. But we're put behind these walls that we are just upholding the systemic domination, and then we lose ourselves and we do become a fucking blob. Now, individualism to the point where we don't give a fuck about each other, that's toxic. It's a toxic side. But recognizing our individuality, I guess that's better than recognizing our individuality, recognizing we are individuals, and then together we can be a community. But recognizing we are individuals and that each individual matters is what's so fucking important and is so drowned out. So I want you to be seen who you actually are behind all this shit, behind all of, the defensive walls that are put up in regards to connectivity. Now, having defense is important. Self defense is important. I'm not shaming defensive walls. Defensive walls are important when they are put there for a fucking healthy ass motherfucking reason, right? You have to have walls of defense. There's nothing wrong with being defensive when you need to be defensive. I don't like the shaming or putting defensiveness in the shadow side because defensiveness is in response usually to abuse. But when defensiveness becomes um, a state of like toxic individualism where it's I don't give a fuck what happens to any of you, that's different. You know what I mean? But defensiveness itself, I don't like that being shamed because it's often used as a manipulative abuse when someone's like, you're being defensive. Well, what the fuck did you say to make me defensive, right? Like there is there is a fucking real reality where people will say some bullshit that of course makes you defensive because they're being insensitive. They're not thinking about things. They're not thinking about things thinking through, and then they're projecting it onto you, right? So I'm not talking about that. It's good to be defensive when you need to be. But what I mean is defensive to the point of toxic individualism where no one else matters, right? So Everyone deserves better. You deserve better. You deserve to be seen. I want you to be seen because that is one of the most healing fucking things. And I wish that for you. So let's, I'm here with you. Let's go down into the mud. Let's get into this shit. And I'll catch you on my next video. We rise together.